Business TV, and I remain your humble host, Lois Peters. Like you know that every business is a product of strategy, every business growth is a product of strategy and action. And most of this strategy is based off of the information you have, as it has to do with your market, as it has to do with understanding what business you are involved in. And with information in mind, we have some few news as it has to do with business around Nigeria. So just in the next few minutes, stay tuned as you listen to the news or as you read the news. Thank you. Welcome back to Business TV. Like I said, we have a very important guest. He is the Executive Director of Technology Hub of Nigeria. He is a business scientist and I call him a business expert. Please join me as I make welcome Dr. Hassan Reginald Richman.
Thank you very much, Lois, and nice to be on this program. I've been following the great work you've been doing so far with startups, and we're very proud of you.
Wow, thank you, sir. But I'd like to return that because I actually believe that you are the one who is doing a lot. I've heard from people and what you're doing in the state government, how you're trying to, make things better for startups and entrepreneurs. And we must thank you for everything you've been doing. And we're so happy to have you on today's show.
Thank you.
Are you guys not happy? I'm happy to have him on this show. So, sir, I have a couple of questions, seeing that this is a business TV, and our goal primarily is to be able to help startups out there, businesses out there, to be able to, build their businesses, build a profitable and a sustainable business. Because trust me, we've seen a whole lot of business come and go. And bringing me to the first question, actually, like never before, I've been noticing there's a whole lot of startups and SMEs springing up from every angle of Nigeria. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a sign of some economic boom, impending economic boom in Nigeria? What do you think about that?
I actually take that with mixed feelings. Okay. Why I say with mixed feelings is actually a sign of a lot of good things to come. It shows businesses because the SMEs, I always tell people, it's actually like comparing SMEs to big companies in a building is like talking about a brick building. When you build a house with brick, the bricks are smaller and they are cemented more and the houses are stronger than when you use block. These are bigger, like big companies. They are not as strong as SME. Collected big SMEs are much stronger than a very big company. So the more SMEs you have, the easier it is for an economy to absorb shock.
Okay.
That's why you see when there is any problem with the stock exchanger, big companies suffer more. It's less, the effect is much less on the SMEs. And the smaller companies like the SMEs are easier to manage. Their structures are easier to deal with and they can handle things like bankruptcy and all the other things better. But why mixed feelings, that's a good thing. On the other hand, the springing up of SMEs is also coming with a lot of challenge of education.
Okay.
A lot of these people are not properly trained, prepared, and sometimes they go into business thinking it is an all-comers affair. Yes. There are processes. If they don't make deliberate plan to succeed, then a lot of them are already an accident waiting to happen. Okay. When we came into Imo State, that was some of the challenges we have. People just think because they have money to rent the building, put in stuff, and they don't have proper bookkeeping process. So some of them don't even know that they are already crumbling until the last minute. when they crumble because they don't have good bookkeeping. Some of them even start without the business plan.
Okay.
Ask 80% of the businesses and startups in Imo State, they start without a business plan. So they don't even understand about when you're talking about trends, business trend.
Okay.
Like you said, I'm a business scientist. I can sit in any place and I can predict the trend of business and ventures in any particular place, giving up to 10 to sometimes 50 years. Based on what is on ground, and some of my prediction is actually what brought me, and I'm trying to spend as much time as I can in Imo State. Some of the events happening around Imo is turning Imo State to become the business capital of the region.
Okay.
If you have some good government and good policies, they can actually invest and take advantage of this and build Imo State because they have all it takes: location, demographic, and a lot more to become the capital hub for businesses within this region.
Okay, sorry. I want to cut you there. Now, based on the answer you've given me, there are striking things I've been able to point out. But most importantly, I want to get back to the initial question, and as it has to do with the economic state of Nigeria. Seeing that we believe that businesses are the life wire of an economy, okay? So which therefore means that, I want to understand from your own perspective, what do you think? Because if there are more startups springing up every now and then from, several aspects of several industries, is it not a sign that it's either Nigerians are actually gradually tilting to a more entrepreneurial mindset, which is a sign. For me, I think it's a sign for an impending economic boom for Nigeria. What do you have to say about that before I come back to some of the points that you've raised?
Yeah, I actually said something. I said that what you're probably elaborating now.
Okay.
I said it's mixed feelings, but to a great extent, it's a good feeling. It means a lot of things are happening, and that means the businesses are picking up, and SME is picking up bits a better economy, like the illustrations I made. So it's actually categorically a very good thing for Nigeria that small and medium scale enterprises are picking up, and it means we are now on the right track.
Okay, but the problem, as you stated, is the fact that most of these SMEs and startups have a challenge with they don't understand the
currently 60% of the businesses that set up more than 60% of businesses that set up in Imo State don't live beyond their first rent for that 1 year or second year. So that means there are going to be a lot more, following the same statistics, if nothing is done, you're going to still have a lot more, since a lot more businesses are starting up, you're going to have a lot more crises ahead because these businesses are bound to crash. Even the people that are going to work there will be out of job within the next 1 or 2 years. So that's what I'm saying. I take it with mixed feeling because first of all, I celebrate it. It's a lot of wonderful things happening, but we need to now work with them to train them how to do things right, almost like troubleshooting mid-air, so that they can avert the crisis that will come following the expansion of these businesses. And it's a good thing for the economy. I think I also give kudos to the government of the day. They have been working, but I think they still need to do a lot more with the SMEs because these are the life wire of any society.
Okay, point out something you said. Now, I remember that I ventured, at some point I ventured into an enterprise, a business, poultry farming, and like you said, I ventured with, of course, what could possibly go wrong with raising birds, But, it was so unfortunate, just in the space of about 2 months, I lost about 3/4 of my birds. And at the end of the day, actually, I ended up, giving out my birds to people. My mother, I know she was very happy with me. You can imagine I was
didn't pray for
I don't know. But then, that's very important because a whole lot of people go into business with that mindset.
I'm pretty, you're going into such a venture. See how my name just in case.
I'll do that. Trust me, I'm going to do that. But you find out that a lot of entrepreneurs and startups do that. Yeah. They go into business because, either they are fascinated with the idea or or they go in because, oh, I think this idea is sellable.
Or somebody else is doing it and then
it's working, so I can do it. So at that point, like you recommended, what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that every startup, before ever you venture into actively working on the business, you should subject yourself to some level of entrepreneurship education.
Yeah, and that's actually what we currently do at the Imo Technology Hub, and I'm happy we're partnering with a private sector this time around to set up one in Imo State, which is called the Eco Technology Hub. So we're in Kinebu, and the essence of these hubs is to have more access to technology, especially technology-based businesses, so we can provide them with resources and bring in all the people they need to help these startups.
Okay, coming to that, I'm also beginning to realize that a whole lot of tech hubs are rising and springing up from every part of Nigeria, and it's almost like when they say startup in the tech hubs, they refer to basically tech-oriented businesses. Now, the question I'm asking is, how are we able to manage these whole startups? Because it's not just about the tech. I understand that tech is a trending thing, and every business that must survive in this 21st century must understand the place of tech is a trend. Now, but how do we manage every startup? How are we going to be able to manage every startup so it doesn't tilt just towards the tech? Because tech hubs everywhere. People who are not tech-related like me, we almost feel left out. How do we address that?
Yeah, the truth is this: we need to first of all understand that when you say technology, you're not talking about technology business, but you use technology as a driver. For instance, if you are doing any business now, you're not on Facebook, you're not started.
Very true.
Even businesses these days, even publicities, even run girls are now online.
Very true. Escort services. That's what
they are online too. So every business now to thrive has to be online. So you guys are not doing a genuine business. If you should also be online. Churches too are going online, and churches normally are the people you think should be far from technology. But it's like a driver, just like the machine age almost affected everything. The same thing, technology is now a driver for so many things: advert, meeting, communication, connections. So the essence of the technology hub is not just for technology-based businesses, but using technology. Even now, we're even talking with people who are doing all this herbal medicine and everything. While we have a complete disclaimer to the product, we just provide platform for people to market and sell and distribute beyond just Imo State to vendors and people around the world. So what we bring to the table is not just technology for the businesses, but for major driver.
Actually, yeah, I get your point now. So moving from where we have trying to help the whole understanding of where startups are rising in Nigeria. The next question I'd like to ask you, sir, is do you think the Nigerian ecosystem is ready for these startups?
Well, we are like, even if you ask me, we are 3 years backwards behind the readiness of the Nigerian people. What I said so is the current administration picked up a bit late with their drive for the SMEs. The previous administration really worked hard and had gotten to a peak that was just about to pick up before the current government took and didn't take it as serious until the economy almost crashed. And they are now doing everything they can to inject funds back into the economy and to encourage the SME. There were a lot of corruption, yes, in quotes, during the last administration, but there was flow and the economy was a lot better, and that was because the SMEs were empowered at various levels. If you came into part, people were leaving businesses from outside Nigeria and were moving into Nigeria, and then immediately they noticed the change in the narrative of the current government at inception. Things went sour. So now they are returning back, and it's encouraging people to invest back in the current economy.
Okay, so the truth is that I have a whole lot of questions to ask you, but we're just gonna go on a brief break, and when we come back, we'll continue. don't forget you're listening to Business TV show, and just don't touch that. Welcome back, and in case you're just joining us, this is Business TV, and we have a guest on the show. His name is Dr. Hassan Reginald Richman. And sir, we were talking about something before we went on the break. You know, you mentioned some things about, you know, entrepreneurial education for startups, and how it is that you think that the government this present government is actually late as it has to do with their response to startups and SMEs, as there are a lot of them, you know, springing up from every part of Nigeria. Now, I have a question. There's some things you said about so many things happening in Nigeria right now. Now, but the challenge is, I have noticed that there are a lot of, you know, more concentration in Lagos, places like Lagos, places like Abuja, you know, as it has to do with the federal government response to, and even financial institutions. Their responses to startups are more in places like Lagos and Abuja. And having the privilege to work a whole lot with startups in this part of Nigeria, I've realized that financial institutions give us little or no audience. And even the federal government, okay, bringing it home, the Imo State government, you realize that there is no ease of doing business here. And I always say,
I will have to go in the ease of doing business. I will completely object, as it has to do with Imo State. This is because I worked on the technical officer to the immediate past SA for Imo Trade and Investment, and personally we were involved in developing policies for businesses. The governor, the executive governor of the state, actually gave us a mandate to overhaul the processes of doing business, particularly making it easy for startups and investors coming into Imo State to set up and start making profit as soon as possible, which included reforms in the land acquisition process. It also included getting desk officers from major sections of the people from the federal government, like immigration, corporate affairs commission, and it was based on some of it that were even the technology hub was established, and now we're partnering with the private sector to drive some of this things. So it's just that over the past, a lot of publicity was not given to these aspects of
okay, because I was going to come there, because I'm asking if so much job has been done. I'm not sure we should rely on talks. If you didn't say that, I'm not sure a whole lot of us watching this show will hear this. It's basically and tangibly the startups whose lives have been transformed. Now, I don't know if it would be too direct to ask you, how many startups were you able to help during the period of time that you people set up the things you set up, as it has to do with the ease of doing business in Imo State?
Well, I'm not privy to those information as of now, but I just put the structures in place. What I'll probably do, like with what we'll be doing with the Eco Technology Hub, which will now be the private sector, where I can have information at my beck and call. We'll be able to, within the next 6 months, work directly with these startups. And then you see, there have also been a problem. You know, it's one thing to provide a policy and a platform, and another thing is for people to take it up. There's been a lot of distraction, negative distraction of young people in business, and because of the both easy ways of making money, a lot of young people don't even want to get their hands dirty doing things, and we're trying to to return back dignity of labor for people to get back and start doing what they need to do to make money. And I'm sure it's a war we are going to win. So the platforms are there. We are going to platforms like yours now. We actually help us get this information out there to those who need it. Okay. And believe me, I hosted last year at the Trade and Investment. We hosted an economic team from the federal government that actually came and they were looking for businesses to fund in Imo State. They had the backing from the presidency, directly from the office of from the president's office, and they came with a team, economic team, even with the essay on economy to the president himself and the minister Kachuku, who is also from here, and a few other top weights. And we hosted them there for a 2-day seminar showing them industries, and we didn't get enough startups or businesses even come to take this advantage, and there are plenty of opportunities. And believe me, you said a lot of the efforts are concentrated in Lagos. Some of these banks actually want people in these areas, but nobody is showing them.
Are you sure?
That's what I'm saying. It's information management. The people run it. We see people don't value what they have. People always want to run to where it's already made. So nobody's taking the pains to want to be the pioneer in certain lessons. And like I said, we more have the opportunity to improve the economy because we have very little or very few SMEs required for the economy to grow. And the more SMEs we're going to have in Igbo State, we increase the B2B transactions and we further enhance the economy of the state.
You know, it's beautiful that you said that because I'd always believed that Imo State has the capacity, or where to be precise, has the capacity to be, you know, the next Silicon Valley, you know. But why? Because why do I say that? Is when you look at the statistics says it all. Numbers, business is a numbers game, as we always say. When you look at Owerri as a city or Imo State as a state, you realize that Imo State is one state that has almost the highest number of institutions represented in the state.
Yes, sir.
And which means therefore that there is a whole lot of human capital represented here. And if I understand my biology very well, and if I understand how it all works, these are people, human capital at their prime age.
Exactly.
At their youthful age, where there is a lot of energy, a lot of passion, you know, the strength is there to execute. But why are we not in Imo State? Permit me, I like to be real. I really love to, yeah, we talk about business, but as it has to do with the people, you know, we have the potential. And if as a smart person in the government, I would direct and channel basically some of my efforts to growing the startups. Because with this human capital, I dare say that this place has all it takes to be the next Silicon Valley. Yeah. So why is it not happening? How do we, I'm sorry if I'm taking your time, but sir, it's because we respect what you have, what you know, and trust me, being a business analyst is something because you understand trends, you are able to advise the government, you are able to advise businesses on the right steps to go. So I'm just asking, maybe this is just the second to last question, sir. Second to the last question. What do you think? What do you think the government should begin to do? Because you can have all these people and at the end of a period, an academic session, they all travel back to, of course, because they see nothing is happening here. So the next port of call for them is to travel to where things are happening. Greener pastures. How do we do that?
Okay, I think it also comes back, when you talk about government, you talk about politics. Yes. When I came into Imo State, I discovered that the state was very polarized.
Okay.
It's either, in fact, a lot of people, we came in, first of all, the technology hub is a tri-party partnership between the federal government, the private sector, and the state government. But we discover when we try to reach out, a lot of people, some of the other politicians on the other side, didn't want to have anything to do with this other side, which it shouldn't be. I mean, business should not be partisan.
Yes.
People, especially when you're talking about the life of the people. So
Yes.
it still boils down to the government and the politicians to learn to where to draw the line about politics and come together, devoid of politics, and build this state.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, if IMO is good, it's good for all of us.
Definitely.
And the term of most political appointments are just 4 years anyway. So will you, because of something that will happen for 4 years, shut down the future of these young people? And funny enough, the same duration of average courses in the US is 4 years.
You know, I never thought about that.
A generation of people that would have been impacted.
Very true, yeah.
So I think it boils down to politicians to be less partisan about the life of the young people and especially business development, and let's all come together, put our hands together. The current government have seen a lot of intentions and open arms to welcome everybody to develop the state, and we should all put hands on deck and do our best. And then talking to the young SMEs too,
Yeah.
if you want businesses to grow in Imo State, you have the power to vote, get your PVCs,
Very
you also
true,
get
very
politically aware. Find out, talk to this politician, because the politicians can only provide what you demand or ask them for. They are not sometimes business experts. So you need to educate them, interact with them, and then they will hear from you and know policies that can help you to do your business. But if you say you don't have any business to do with politics, the decisions they make will eventually at the end of the day affect you.
Okay, so you know, you've said quite a lot. You've said quite a lot, and actually we have to take everything you said and put it in proper, you know, how we can practicalize some of the things you've said. You know, and we're actually coming to the end of the show. We were so glad having you on the show. Trust me, I've learned a lot in these few moments I've spent with you. You know, I was going to ask you if you have any one word or anything you have to say to startups. You know, so I don't know if you have what's
one
your word?
Just one word. When you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Okay.
Join the Eco Technology Hub or the Imo Technology Hub or the Technology Hub of Nigeria, or any of the hubs that can help you meet and communicate with the right people and prepare to make the sacrifice it takes to be an entrepreneur. No, be my mind. A lot of people think it's easy. There are those things that they don't tell you about chosen professions. They tell you about being a doctor wearing this, but they don't tell you about the sleepless nights and when you cry when the patient died. So get the good, the bad, and the ugly about any profession or any venture you want to go into, and then close your eyes and jump.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time on Business TV. Trust me, it was our pleasure having you here. Please, go. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And I'm just going to close with what he said. If you fail to plan, it means that you're planning to fail. And this goes a long way to teach every startup that it's not just about you having an idea. You must go out there and make some plans. You must go out there and you must sit your butt down and be able to, practicalize, think, strategic thoughts on how to grow your business, on how to understand the market research, on how to understand the market that you're going into. And that plays a very pivotal role in your growth as a business. And I'm sure in the last few minutes, or I don't know, it's not up to an hour, but I'm sure in the last few minutes you've had a wonderful time hearing from Dr. Hassan and enjoying your time on this show, Business TV. And we've come to the end of this show, but one thing you must remember is that the goal of this show is basically to help startups, help businesses across Nigeria to be able to grow their businesses and have, profitable and sustainable business. And like I said, we've come to the end of the show. I remain your humble host, Lois Peters, and this is Business TV. Until the next time, same place, don't touch that dial. Thank you.